Hey everyone, welcome to Movie Marathons HQ, where we do movie marathons connected to new releases and where we enjoy and review some of our favorite movies. This video is part of the Spider-Man Brand New Day Movie Marathon and also the Avengers Doomsday Movie Marathon, where we are watching one movie every week as we prepare for both the release of Spider-Man Brand New Day in July 2026 and the release of Avengers Doomsday in December 2026. Today we are discussing Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Released in 2021 and directed by Andy Serkis, this is the follow-up to 2018's Venom. In this movie, they picked a new director. They moved on from Ruben Fleischer and they picked Andy Serkis, who of course had done some great character work and acting work previous to this and had done some assistant directing work on some of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbits movies. And so this is not his first directorial debut, but kind of cool to hear about Andy Serkis behind the camera. Overall, I do not like this movie. I like this one less than the original Venom, although I didn't like that one either. There's very little to like in this one. It feels very rushed. It feels very thin. And it's hard. I didn't think it could get much worse than the first Venom, but for me it did. For positives, I do have two to share. One is having Carnage as the villain, and the second is a few aspects of the relationship between Eddie and Venom, which I think were improved upon from the first movie. And for negatives, I would mention the visual effects, the characters and character work again, and the plot again, so pretty similar negatives to the first Venom. Spoiler alert for Venom, Let There Be Carnage. The first positive is the villain of this movie. In the post-credit scene of the first Venom, we do get introduced to Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy. And in the comics, Cletus Cassidy is a serial killer who's in prison, and it's a different origin, but then he gets an offspring of the Venom symbiote as a new symbiote that attaches to him. And in the comics, Carnage is great because we know that the symbiote kind of makes you crazy because it's an alien that's interested in devouring people. But when you put that in the mind of a serial killer, you get some really, really scary stuff. So that aspect transferred well into this movie. I don't think Woody Harrelson did a good job at all in the role. I don't think he seems like even a real person by any stretch. But just the fact that they have a serial killer with this symbiote and they do make him do some really scary and horrific and terrible things, that part works. So I'd say that's a positive. But in a Venom sequel, I think it's pretty obvious that you should go with Carnage as the villain. So can't give them much props for creativity. But having that as the movie and they greenlit it and that part of the movie works for me. And then one other positive in this movie is the relationship between Eddie and Venom, I think does get a little bit better. Venom and Eddie are again portrayed by Tom Hardy, who is a great actor. I just don't think he does a good job here. But one thing I like is that they've got the same back and forth banter kind of in Eddie's head as they did in the first movie. But they have a discussion where Venom says that he needs something in human brains to survive. It's called phenylethylamine. And so I like that they put that in the movie, that there's a reason why Venom needs to eat brains particularly, and then that chemical can be found in human brains, but also in chocolate. So he has this obsession with chocolate. I like that. I think that's kind of fun versus I just like to eat bad guys because I'm a crazy alien thing. It's not like this makes this grounded or, real, but I like that the relationship is kind of some give and take where Eddie says, no, I can't sanction you doing this, but I guess if you need this chemical, let's try to give it to as much chocolate to you as we can. But then if not, maybe if we just find really bad people, those are the ones that you can devour. So I sort of like that more than I did in the first movie. For negatives, I would mention the visual effects. I had called this a positive in the first Venom movie, but here I think it's a negative. It just doesn't improve much, and a lot of this movie is really dark. Maybe that's not a visual effects thing, maybe it's a cinematography thing, but it's just very dark. I had to turn the brightness up on my TV several times at several moments just to see what was happening. And then the visuals are kind of crazy. Carnage does this like indoor tornado thing, which looks really bad. There's a lot of green screen and compositing stuff that stands out. Personally, I don't like that they gave Carnage a black face. I don't like the color red that they picked in the comics. He's very red, not blood red, but like red, and I like that. And then in this one, they made him really muted and kind of like a maybe a blood red, I guess, is probably what they were going for, but I just didn't like the color. But that's beside the point. They also kind of made him all red, except his face is black, and I just don't think it looks good. But aside from that, the actual visual effects, I don't think stand up very well with some of the fire and some of the tentacle stuff. It just is a downgrade from the first movie, even. Another negative is still the characters. I still dislike Eddie Brock. He is a bit more likable because he doesn't do as many overt dislikable things in this movie as he did in the first. But I still just don't root for him. I don't really want him to win or care if he wins. And then we're introduced to Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy / Carnage, and Naomi Harris as Frances, also called Shriek. Neither of them seem like real people. They're worse than caricatures, worse than cartoony. They just don't seem like any version of a real person I've ever met or heard of. Those characters are just awkward and not enjoyable and weird, which maybe is what they were going for. And if that's what they were going for, then I guess he nailed it. I just don't think it works in the context of the movie. And then Cletus has this thing against Eddie, which I've watched this movie 2 times and I don't understand if he likes him, if he doesn't like him, if he's using him as a means to an end, if he genuinely is trying to make a connection with him. I just don't understand Cletus's motivations at all, other than he's in love with Frances, which I guess is nice that a serial killer has found love, and he breaks her out and they just want to get married and have this nice, terrible wedding together. It's just weird. So I still think the characters don't work. Venom still doesn't work. Eddie still mostly doesn't work. He's a bit better. And then the side characters don't work. Michelle Williams is here again, and I don't think she works or does anything interesting. And it's just negatives all around for all the characters. And then the last negative is just the plot. I think this one is also really weak. I thought the plot in the first movie was pretty weak, and here in the second movie, it's also weak. I don't understand how things connect. I'm not invested in any of it. I don't care about the serial killer and his fiance and their wedding. I don't really care about the people that are in harm's way or the people that Carnage is going after. It just seems like this is the plot because we wrote it as the plot, so we're going to follow it as the plot, and the audience just needs to accept it, but I didn't feel any buy-in for this whole movie. Now, how might Venom Let There Be Carnage connect to Spider-Man Brand New Day? I don't think there will be much of a connection, but there is a chance that there is. So Tom Hardy and none of the actors in this movie are confirmed to be on the cast list for Brand New Day, so it's not like they're going to be main cast members. But there are some things in the first trailer for Brand New Day that do suggest maybe Black Suit Spider-Man is coming. That's a famous storyline from the comics that began in the Secret Wars storyline. So I do think that the Venom symbiote is going to connect at least to Secret Wars, but it could be to Doomsday before that, or even to Brand New Day. Otherwise, I don't think there'll be much connection, but this is where there's the post-credit scene, which I don't consider part of the movie, but still, post-credit scene which directly visually shows Tom Holland Spider-Man and J.K. Simmons J. Jonah Jameson. So there is a connection to the MCU officially from this movie. Now, how might Venom Let There Be Carnage connect to Avengers Doomsday? Tom Hardy is not on the cast list for Doomsday, nor is anybody else from this movie, so I don't think there's a direct connection or cameos or anything from this movie. However, the Black Suit Spider-Man initially came in the comics from the Secret Wars storyline. So I do think that we're somehow going to get a connection with the Venom symbiote and our MCU timeline Spider-Man in Secret Wars, but it could be as early as Avengers Doomsday. It also could be in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And there are some Easter eggs in the first Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer that maybe suggest a black suit, maybe that his kind of organic web metamorphosis thing that's happening is connected to the symbiote. So there could be a connection there. I'm not going to put any money on it, though. I still think it's pretty vague at this point, but you never know. So that's my review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. What do you think of this movie, and how do you think it might connect to Spider-Man Brand New Day or Avengers Doomsday? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. Follow Movie Marathons HQ on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and also on Letterboxd, where you can see all of the movie marathons that we have done and that we have going on right now, including the newly announced Toy Story 5 movie marathon. The next movie in this marathon will be Venom: The Last Dance. See you at the movies!